Let's give it a go then. So, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you are listening. Joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Q
Thank you. Hello.
and Mr. Jamie Page,
How you doing?
and a very special welcome. Is this your first, second, third? I can't.
First.
First, so you're going to pop your cherry on the Makers International podcast. That sounded better in my head, I have to say. Anyway, so a massive welcome to Chris Smith, the Woodgineer, the Mad Maker. I think you've been known as publicly a few things. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah, I keep changing the name. Just keep it fresh.
Is that just, because you get... And I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, because I know some people get really serious about their kind of online presence and their branding, and some people just don't. Is that like a conscious rebranding thing, or is it you get bored, or is it because you do lots and lots of things? Or
it was a conscious rebranding, trying to do you know what, I'm going to try something out. Didn't work. Thought, do you know what? Enough of this. I'm going to go by what I want to go by. So I went back to the Woodgineer. It's what it is.
If at first you don't succeed,
I had some crazy notions about, sometimes I do videos that don't have wood. And I thought, do you know what? It doesn't matter. No one's watching them anyway. So I thought, why
not? That's not quite true. I mean, because I don't consider myself nobody, and I've seen a couple. Jesus, man.
I'll be honest, I watched for the eye candy.
Well, yeah.
I saw the brothers make video.
That was the one I was thinking of as well, actually. Yeah, I was going to say there's been some highbrow videos, and there's been some funny videos, and I always love the way you put just your brand of comedy genius into everything, even though there's sort of a serious or practical behind the scenes. I know some people do it the other way around. They have like a serious video with like a jokey undertone, whereas yours are that on its head a lot of the time, I find. Yeah, they're a jokey video with a serious undertone. So, cool. So what are you up to at the moment then? You've just moved workshops and houses and all sorts, haven't you?
Yeah, moved workshop. That was really stressful, but really rewarding, because now I've got a massive space in comparison, and a space that's split into two as well. I've got a dirty, dusty sort of wood shop and a cleaner, nicer room for all the stuff that doesn't like the dust.
That should be your Woodgineer shop.
Indeed, yes.
Wood over there, Gineer to the left. I got you.
So, I mean, you are not just a woodworker, right? I mean, I guess for people that don't really know you or aren't familiar with you, you do obviously the woodworking, you do a bit of wood turning, pen making, and stuff like that. But the gineering side of the Woodgineer is kind of 3D printing and sort of computery. Are you into Pi and that sort of stuff as well, coding?
Yeah, I do try and stick where I can, and I want to do more of this as well. I try and stick a little bit of electronics into the woodworking and do things that haven't quite been done before.
Like power tools.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the electrics go into my woodworking. It's sort of, I plug the tool in.
Yeah, I'm only laughing, Richard, because I'm right there with you. I'm into electronics. Yeah, I plug stuff in all the time.
Yeah. Just very briefly before, because actually, this could potentially bear with Chris. This is an edit point, because this might actually work as a bit of a segue, because we're going to be talking about kind of make spaces, hack spaces, and those sorts of groups, places, meeting clubs, whatever you want to kind of categorize them as. But I first met you in person at the very first Maker Central, because weren't you there with, was it the Southampton hack space?
Yeah, we were there with Southampton Makerspace. It was just two of us, because we didn't know what the show was going to be like, so we just rocked up in my friend's car. Absolutely got given this massive stand to go, there you go, you can promote your space on here. We thought, oh crikey, we don't know what we let ourselves in for, but we thought, do you know what, we're not going to go all the way up to middle of the country to promote Southampton. down in the south, we're going to come here and promote makerspaces and hackerspaces and get people to go to their nearest one, or if they haven't got one, maybe consider making one, getting one started. And yeah, we chatted to absolutely loads of people, and indeed, a lot of them went to the closest makerspaces and hackerspaces. It was great to see.
It's fantastic. And before we actually get into this, Richard, did you want to say thank you to our sponsors? You want to leave that to the end?
I tell you what, let's have Chris decide. Chris, what would you think?
Flip a coin, Chris.
Go for it.
Go for
Get
it.
them
Well,
out of the way.
as always, tonight's show is, of course, brought to you in part not just by Chris, the Woodgineer, but also by our good friend Chad and Mancrafting, Glyn from Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, and also Pam from Highland Boxes, who's giving away those just fantastic Highland boxes / hybrid blanks. And you've thrown me now, Chris. I've just lost the plot. And also Steve Harnell, the guy behind the website that does all that sort of stuff that Jamie used to take the blame for. If you want to find out more about our sponsors, head on over to the website makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. All the information's there because I know Steve puts it there, even though Jamie pretends that he does. Don't you, Jamie?
Very true.
Absolutely. All good people. Seriously, though, in all seriousness, we wouldn't allow them to support us if we didn't fully believe in what they were doing. So do check them out and do see what they're all about. If not, so getting back to the hack space topic, I first met you, Chris, when you were at Maker Central, and I seem to remember, was it a banana keyboard? Or it was some kind of fruit-based musical electronic instrument, and it literally, I mean, I was aware that Raspberry Pis were a thing, and I was aware of those little kind of, what are they called? I've got one attached to my 3D printer. Not Raspberry Pi. What's Arduino? That's the one. Yeah, you see, that's how much I know about them. I was aware of that they existed, but I didn't really understand what they do, and I didn't realise that you could make basically an orchestra out of your salad bowl using them.
Yeah, pretty much.
And people think, yeah, whatever, but that's exactly what you did. We were playing bananas, and there was musical tones coming out of it, and there was one, I think it was some young lad that could actually play the piano, was playing your banana keyboard, and there was actual real music coming out of it, which I just completely blew my mind.
That's right. Yeah, we had a few little things that whatever we could just cram into the car, basically. And the banana keyboard has always been popular at little shows and bits and pieces we do locally. So we thought, wow, yeah, why not? Let's get that up and going. A couple of 3D printers, a few of James's stuff as well. That he was quite a draw for the stand, has to be said. I can't even remember what else we had. Yeah, some conductive Play-Doh as well, so people could just squeeze and squish a little circuit together.
Which is pretty much what I do with circuits. They all generally get squeezed and squished together. Not usually with Play-Doh, but
I'm not even gonna go there.
It's amazing to see because we had people like yourself who were amazed, but we also had kids come along to the stand, and you could almost see this spark in their eye where they're thinking, how is this working? And then we explained it to them, and I'd like to think that they learned something, or maybe it just made them want to go and learn something.
That's awesome.
You look at it from the kind of the kids' point of view, and that's where I think they have a distinct advantage because they're not biased by kind of grown-up conventions, and they haven't been exposed to things that kind of, in a way, restrict the adult mind and the imagination, whereas kids just go, well, I could have a musical instrument made out of bananas, and it would then obviously the next step is apple pie symbols or whatever, and they run with it, whereas an adult goes, well, I'm not quite sure.
See, that's the difference between kids and adults. Adults have to forget everything they've ever learned in order to learn something new, and kids are learning something new every day. And so this is just part of the equation. So they haven't been muddled down with the preconceived or whatever you want to call it.
I guess that's why a lot of kids turn around when you turn around and say you can't do it. I say, well, why can't I?
Well, you know what? You probably can.
It's the old parenting conundrum, isn't it? Or paradox. It's like you spend your entire life teaching kids and then you're surprised when they go, "Why?"
Yeah.
You know?
No, you
And that-
can't turn the radio from that potato. Why? And then you go and see it advertised.
and the kid knows they won when the parent goes, "Because I said so." It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So
But I saw the Woodgineer do it on YouTube.
What's his name? Where does he live? Do you have his address? 'Cause how about a phone number? I want to talk to this man.
talking of addresses and moving, so you've recently moved from where you were living to where you are living now. I'm assuming you used to live somewhere near or in Southampton.
You already know this, Richard. We've spoken about this on WhatsApp.
We have, but I'm trying to make it sound like it's a genuine question, which actually is, to be fair, because I don't remember. I've slept since that conversation.
Yeah, we've basically done the most confusing move you could possibly do, but potentially the easiest move you could possibly do, and moved next door.
What?
So, it's literally, friends of mine did exactly that, actually. Anyway, so presumably you are still a member of that makerspace, that hackspace, or whatever it was. That was where the question was going, anyway.
Yeah, I'm still a member of my local makerspace. It has to be said, my local makerspace is for the last 2-3 years fairly far away from me now. And I live a sort of in between, a sort of dead zone in between two good spaces. So I have to kind of pick a good one to visit if I want to go to one.
So roughly how far away is it from you in terms of miles? More or less than 40.
I'd have to look at a map, but you're looking like a 35-40 minute drive.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean that's a little bit less than what I travel, but only because I can't park there, because it's the one I go to is in Cambridge city centre. And if anyone knows Cambridge, then unless you're walking or you're on a bike, you can't travel into town unless you're willing to park in your own front garden, basically, and then get the bus in, because that's just the way Cambridge works. People have to drive out of town to get a bus back in because it's that backwards. Anyway, so I can literally.
Great system.
It's Cambridge. Cambridge likes bikes. They don't like cars. What are you going to do? So I mean, I can sympathise with your dilemma in terms of having to pick one that's closest.
It has to be said though that the real thing about makerspaces and hackerspaces, they mean so much to different people. Some people love them because they've got some cool tools, but I think the biggest value that they have is because they have really cool and awesome members who know so many different things and have still got access to that pool of knowledge and those people.
And that is exactly what I was going to say. I mean, yeah, there are some cool tools, and I know different places have different facilities. Some places have more or less space, and everything's.
This kind of leads into one of the questions we got from Andy Pugh this week, and once again, Andy.
Andy who?
And yeah, exactly. Our weekly inquisitor has questions for, and because that led, and you know what, I'm going to be kind of the negative Nelly here, and I think that people have to go in knowing that I don't care if you're talking about maker spaces, if you're talking about restaurants, or if you're talking about supermarkets. I mean, everyone is different. I mean, some people are going to have a certain thing happening in there, and some people are going to have a certain thing happening here. And so, for the most part, I think Chris is probably being genuine when he says there are people in there that are willing to help you. But is it possible you could walk into a maker space and that Andy is describing here in his question, saying, aren't they just full of experts who are going to not welcome beginners, or aren't they kind of cliquey to those who know different ways of doing things? I mean, it's a misconception that if you can put clarity to, Chris, I guess is what he's asking. Andy already knows the answer to this question, but he's asking it for those who may have that question. Yeah.
I mean, I won't lie. As with any group anywhere, you are going to get your cliques, your people that pull together. And they do tend to attract introverts as well. So you might get people who are busy making away, enjoying themselves. Someone new might turn up, and they won't necessarily dive on that person and say, "Hey, how you doing? Come and have a look around." But I think that's just the nature of the beast. That's not what any of them strive to do. I think every space I've ever visited myself, and it's been a few in the UK, have always welcomed people on board, or at least had some kind of policy to say, you see a new member, say hello, show them around. And you do find that does happen a lot. And you do get your little groups that do stick together, but that's just because they're people that they hang around with every week.
That happens in our own community. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I think the more people you get involved, the more chance you have that of happening. I mean, it's just, it's high school all over again, kids, and it never really ends until the day you die.
And it's something we do try and actively discourage, and we try and get people to be as inclusive as possible.
I think from my experience of Makespace is very limited. I've only ever visited one. I joined. I've been there half a dozen times. This was really, really irritating. I joined just before lockdown, right at the beginning of March. I had about 2 weeks where I made a couple of visits, not including the induction and the kind of visit the space evening. So maybe 4 times in total. And then we got an email saying, stop coming. We're shutting up shop until further notice. Well, it wasn't quite that bad, but then I couldn't go for 6 months. And it sort of went on the back burner. Since it's been back, I've been there 4 or 5 times, and so I'm no expert on the culture behind it or anything like that. Certainly not to the level of you, Chris. But I would completely agree with what you just said. You're going to get cliquey little groups in any community. You'd be naive, I think, to think otherwise. But also, there are people who are just busy doing their thing, and there are people who, what's the polite way of putting it? They're keen to communicate with other members and share what they're doing and strike up a conversation as to what you're doing. Just like any group, you get these people that won't, like me, that basically won't shut up, and then some people that you can't get, 2 syllables out of. So it's a very broad spectrum.
Yeah, but there are a couple of places around the country that will do a new members evening, for example, and everyone who's working in the space that evening will know that anyone coming in the door, they need to sort of greet them, show them around. There's a couple of other spaces that do things like have a rubber duck, of all things, next to the person who is the official greeter of the evening.
I like that.
I like that as well.
It's on the website. It's like, you go and see the guy with the duck.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
There's a big sign, big easel in front of the door. Now ours is open because it's hand sanitizer and masks the whole time you're in there, and spaces have got a maximum number of people that are allowed in a particular room and things like that. But it's welcome back, have fun, say hello, and smile at everyone. Brackets, even if they can't see it. And it's always encouraged. They used to do, before all the kind of extra measures, they used to have a monthly social evening where people would just turn up and have a pizza evening and meet other people that were there as well. So I get the impression that most places are also a bit of a social scene as well as a have your head stuck in your laptop kind of a place.
Yeah, I've met some amazing friends through founding the Southampton Makerspace. I mean, some of them were at my wedding. What can I say? I've probably made some of the best friends I've made in my whole life through makerspaces.
Okay, I have some genuine questions that I had jotted down they're just general things, guys. So I mean, if you can answer in generalities if you'd like, that's fine. And one is that was shared with me by Andy as well this week. So he's asking my question at the same time he's asking his. And it's 2-part. First one is, why should anybody look to join or make a space? And then follow that with how much does it typically cost? So let's hit A first. I mean, why should anyone look to get involved in a makerspace? What's the attraction, I guess, is the question.
I think there's absolutely loads of reasons, and it's very personal. You will have scenarios where someone might live in a small flat. They don't have access to any tools, or they can't afford to buy any tools or anything special, 3D printers, laser cutters. So it's a resource for those people for a start. So you've got that group. But you've also got the group of people who can afford every single tool that is. They've got a massive workshop even, perhaps. But who wants to sort of go into their massive workshop completely on their own every night and just do their own thing, without chatting to anyone about it. Without you get stuck, what are you going to do? It's lovely. Just work side by side on something, and that the being stuck thing, especially, you've got such a great group of people in makerspaces and hackerspaces. You could have one guy who's been a carpenter all his life. He'll teach you everything you could possibly want to know about wood, but he doesn't know how to turn on a PC. But that's lucky because you're a coder for a living and you can tell him how to program a Raspberry Pi. And that pool of talent is probably one of the biggest resources that I love about them.
So that's kind of like a question A/B to me. What I was because I mean I would think that the attraction to going to a makerspace is not only are they going to probably have tools that you either don't have room for in your shop or just simply can't afford, but the second part of that is you would actually, is it a learning space as well?
Yes,
Definitely.
I mean, Richard, we're chatting. You've gone through actual specific training that they've set up, haven't you?
Yeah. So
the rest of different tools.
well, at our space, what they do is they categorize all the. I won't say tools. I'll say facilities, and by facility I mean a piece of machinery or a piece of technology or whatever it is, and it could be screen printing or it could be a CNC machine. So they categorize things green, amber, and red. So a green tool or a green facility, anyone can play with. Yeah, you remember, crack on. Amber is something where anyone can use them, but they're a little bit more technical, potentially intimidating, or
Dicey.
not necessarily dicey. So screen printing is an example of one of the green tools. Amber, we've got off the top of my head a vinyl cutter. So if you want to make like stickers and stencils, and then you've got obviously the cutter itself, or the plotter machine printer, and the PC side of it. A belt and disc sander for the woodworkers. What else are there? Spindle sander, oscillating spindle sander. They're orange tools. Red tools are a mini CNC mill, a 8x4, a 60-watt laser, glass, jewelry bead, not glass blowing, but when they melt glass, and fused glass. Those are like a kiln, high temperatures, things like that. That was a red tool. If it's red, then you have like now it's an online induction, so you have to do like a little safety quiz. Where's the fire extinguisher? When's the fire alarm go off? That kind of thing. And then an online quiz specifically for that equipment. And once you've passed those at 100%, then you go in with somebody who is officially a trainer on that. So somebody who makes glass beads as their hobby or their living, and they look after that equipment, and they train you on it. And they go, yeah, that person's safe. They've only got first-degree burns, nothing too serious. The place is still standing. That's fine. Well, obviously not like that. Yeah, you're safe. You're competent-ish. Now you're in a position where you can now experiment and learn and develop under your own guidance and
under your own tutelage. But yeah. is there generally some? And I guess this is always kind of hit or miss, because makerspaces, in the way I view them, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's places where people come and go at their leisure. So there may be somebody there that is well versed in how to operate a CNC or help you through a coding problem, or there may not be on one certain evening. I mean, if there's somebody there you can ask a question to, they're happy to answer. But if they're not there, then you're kind of on your own tutelage type thing.
You are. Typically, they're not paid employees in most makerspaces or hackerspaces. There's a few exceptions around this country. There's a few in the States as well, I know. So you do get luck of the draw who's there that night. But obviously, because you've got this community, there's no reason why you can't reach out to people and say, hey, are you going to be in Tuesday night? Because I would really like to learn more about this particular process. 9 times out of 10, those people are happy to show you, happy to teach you stuff.
Oh, I was going to say, if it's anything like this community, anybody who's going to be there and knows something about it is going to be happy to share their knowledge with it. The second question is, and I know it's going to be difficult to answer because it's probably different depending on location, depending on facility. But what are the typical costs? I mean, are we looking at a monthly fee, a yearly fee, or yes to both, and how much? If somebody's listening to us right now and they know there's a makerspace in their area and they kind of want to get a general idea of what it's going to cost them to join that, what is that? I mean, and I know, like I said, you have to be general about it.
It can range because you've got ones in smack bang in London, for example, that cost a fair bit. I know, Richard, your one's a fairly hefty amount, but what you get out of it is it's pretty good. It's certainly worth it, and it's certainly cheaper than buying at all.
Put a pound or a dollar on it for me, please. Tell me.
Well, just to give you an example, the Southampton Makerspace had a recommended monthly donation of £20 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
sorry.
We did have previously a where it was a little bit more flexible, rent was a little bit cheaper, and equipment wasn't as expensive because we got a lot of donations. We did have a system where it was pay what you feel the space is worth for you, very much running on donations. And there are still some smaller places that do that, but we didn't have that luxury, unfortunately. So we had to institute something that was like, right, we have to ask for this.
So I mean, if we're looking at a Midland of being £20 per month, I mean that's actually worth it. I mean, I would pay that. I would pay that. I mean, I certainly would if I had access to those kinds of machines and I had access to that kind of learning, to that kind of technology. Now is that? Now, I have to ask this question because people are going to ask if I don't. Is that typically, if I pay for this month, I go for this month, but if I don't pay for next month, I don't have to go, and then I can pick up my subscription later on? Is it a pay as you go kind of thing, or is there some kind of contract you need to sign for a year, or what's the deal?
Typically, most of the spaces want you to be a member, mostly for health and safety reasons, and having you as a member means that, great, we can say, these are our members. It makes insurance and various other things a lot easier. But there are spaces around the country that will do pay as you go. You just won't necessarily have access to all the equipment because obviously they can't just expect to rock up, turn on someone's laser cutter and burn the place down.
How often, and I know you can only speak to the space Europe, how often is the renewal on that? Is it a yearly thing? Okay.
It's a monthly thing for ours. I've seen most of the spaces around the country are sort of similar monthly as well. I think, Richard, your one is it in a fairly affluent area? Am I right in thinking?
So yeah, I mean the Cambridge Makespace is in a building that's owned by Cambridge University, and they allow Makespace to use the space. I don't know whether they pay them for the rent, whether they let them have it for nothing, or what the agreement is with the building, the landlord, for want of a better expression. But we pay as members £40 a month, which actually is the most expensive that I've come across. I just had a quick look. The London Hackspace is £15 a month, according to the Google reply. So of the three, Cambridge, London, Southampton, it would appear that London is the cheapest. So, which is, it is what it is. But honestly, £40 a month, £10 a week. I personally, circumstances are what they are to the individual. Cambridge is not it is a fairly affluent area, yes, on the whole. I mean, again, people are people and circumstances are what they are to that individual. But personally, I think that's great value. Even if the people weren't welcoming, even if the individuals there were heads down, focused solely on what they were doing and nobody else, which actually is not the case at all. I haven't met anybody who just isn't wanting to say hi, at least, let alone come over and find out what you're doing. Just the way I kind of justify it to me is quite black and white, quite simple. How else can I afford to use a 4,000 square foot space with two 60-watt lasers, a floor standing milling machine, a Walcott lathe, a wood CNC, a 3-axis CNC mill, screen printing, industrial sewing machine, vacuum formers, vacuum pumps, soldering station, and a glass kiln for £40 a month? Now that's 24/7 access as well. You get a little key fob, you can go in when you like. And even at 3 o'clock in the morning, you rock up in there and there's somebody in a corner coding, somebody doing something, 3D printers running, people's, doing all sorts. It's it's always something going on. It's never closed, really. It's quite a weird.
I look at it this way, and I'm going to date myself, and that's not hard because I do it every week.
No one else would date you, Chris. That's me.
Well, I'm married now. I'm hoping that's because people respect that. Okay, we're gonna skip the Morley comment and move on to what I was trying to say. I can remember 20 years ago, and this is money 20 years ago. I remember I was spending at least $15 a month in magazine subscriptions for woodworking, and most of the time I was getting cool stuff to read, but I wasn't getting because a lot of times these magazines came and showed that their selling point was here's a master craftsman building this, and I'm looking at this going, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to do that. Okay, it's cool and I enjoy reading about it, and so I appreciated the subscription, but if I'm paying $15 a month just to read, I would certainly pay 20 to go do. I mean, it's not that much of an up. It's not that much of an up. And would I dump the magazine subscription for the makerspace? In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I would have done that if they were around back then. Which leads me to our next question. And I think this will kind of round it up from everything that Andy wanted to know. He says quite a few cities have makerspaces, but I don't want to overstate that because honestly, Andy, there are a lot of places in the U.S. currently that don't have makerspaces. But he says, if you don't live anywhere near a city, two-part question. How would you go about starting one if you wanted to start one yourself? And the second part of that question is starting one a really big ask and maybe overall a bad idea? So first one, I guess, Chris, we're going to put it to you. If you wanted to go start one on your own, and I'm sure this is probably soup to nuts, a very long answer, but I mean, in general, I mean, how would you answer that?
It's certainly not for the faint-hearted. And there's loads of different ways of doing it and loads of opportunities that might come up that allow you to do it quicker and easier. Like, for example, if you've got access to a building already. But typically speaking, I would say get a community first. I've seen a few spaces try and set up. They've paid a bit of rent. They've got a little unit somewhere and they failed because they just didn't have that community base. They maybe had 4 or 5 guys who just wanted to have a couple of machines in a unit, and it just didn't work. What we did in Southampton, crikey, it was 10 years ago now. Oh, lost Richard.
He'll be back. Don't worry.
Is we just had a meetup in a pub once a month. Talked about what we wanted to do, where we wanted to create a hackerspace. We just kept on going like that. We then started to do a few events, a few little hackathons, bits and pieces. We started to build up the more and more people that were interested. It got to the point where we got this critical mass of people, probably about 30 people or so, where we just say to them, look, we want to do this. We want to make this a physical reality. Let's everyone start looking for a building or somewhere where we can actually do this properly. And lo and behold, someone found a nice little corner of a bicycle workshop where we could set up and get started. It was free, completely rent-free and everything else as well. But we said to everyone, look, this isn't going to work if we don't all chip in, pay some membership, assume that there is, pretend there's some rent, so that when we do upgrade and we get to a bigger place, we've got that income, everything's already in place, so we can move in there. And it worked, and we did it step by step. And within 2-3 years, we had a nice little unit where I had some pretty good gear, which is, well, we've outgrown that several times now, and it's doing amazingly today.
I don't want to get into too much of the nitty gritty, but I have a couple surface questions. Do you have to register? You have to register those as a business?
Well, no, technically you don't, because it could be a group of you that just want to do this as a club. But then you've got to worry about insurance.
Was going to be my second question. Go ahead. Yeah.
And you could try and do this without insurance, but what if something goes wrong?
Because I was thinking that insurance for a makerspace could be rather pricey.
No, not at all. Our first load of insurance was something crazy like £120 for the year, which, when you think about it, is nothing.
That surprises me. That I'm actually shocked by that. Really,
for a lot of strangers coming in and potentially hurting themselves, that's quite cheap.
we did have to prove that there were certain safety procedures in place. Like we weren't just letting strangers come in; we were getting them to be members, getting them to do training before they use a certain tool.
And I think that those 2-3 comments highlight the reluctance, I think, of a lot of people to want to set these up. Because there are
Hurdles.
Yeah, and that's literally what they are. But there's all these spaces all over the place in whatever country, because I know it's not just limited to the UK or the US. There are in other countries as well. But that's exactly what they are. They're hurdles, and it just goes to prove that if you have enough people wanting to come together with this sort of common goal, effectively, you can do that.
Yeah.
If someone else has done it, why can't I? It literally can be as simple as that. And usually the answer is, if it's like, because I don't want to do that, that's just as fine as, well, actually, yeah, why can't we do this? Let's go and do it.
Well, and every area is going to be different. You may find a ton of people right at the outset, or if you happen to live in an area like I unfortunately do. I mean, I could take out a full-page ad in our local paper saying, "Woodworkers, let's get together and talk about a makerspace," and I might get one person to show up, and they would misunderstand what I meant by wood, and then they would leave. I mean, honestly, I think I am the only person in this area that actually has an interest, and that would make sense. So it just wouldn't make sense for me. But I mean, like Chris was saying, I think probably the best approach, Chris, is the way you guys did it, was to gather the community first and then work on setting up the space. I mean, it's a fantastic idea. And I would like to say, oh yeah, go out and do it tomorrow, start your own tomorrow. But you really, I mean, for your own pocket and for the health of the makerspace itself, it probably isn't the best approach.
It has to be said, there is a lot of help out there for people who want to give this a try and do need it. Because obviously, we've seen loads of hackerspaces in the last 20 years just grow and grow, and more of them have come along. There's a lot of experience out there from people who have set them up. You've got loads of information available on how to do it and how to do it properly. You're going to have loads of companies who are willing to donate tools to you. I mean, for example, it was only not so long ago the Gospel makerspace, not too far down the road from me in the other direction. They got a whole bunch of tools donated to them. Some various different countries, companies like Triton, for example, just because they were setting it up, they knew the members would be using it, and that got them off to a great start. And of course, you've got grants and stuff like that available as well. So it's not completely something that one person would ever struggle to do on their own. They're going to have so much help available.
And that's part of the kind of community thing is that it's not a solo effort. I liken it very much to setting up your own workshop, and that doesn't matter whether your workshop is set up from a Stanley toolbox containing whatever bits and pieces you need to do the thing you want to do, stored under the bed, to a 2,000 square foot workshop. It doesn't happen overnight. I think, Chris, you'll be able to attest to this. Having set something up or been part of that. I mean, I walked into one that had been going for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And there's 2 photographs. And the members are very proud of these 2 photographs. One was like day one. It's a table in the corner of an office with a kettle and half a dozen packets of crisps on it. Yeah. And that was their refreshment stand. That was their kind of social gathering place, was the kettle and the crisp packets. Now that same area to go and get a drink consists of
a kitchen.
Well, it's probably about the size of your workshop, Chris. I'd say about the size of a 2-car garage.
Holy moly!
Whoa!
It's got. So, well, you have to speak in a language that he'll understand, James.
Oh, please.
It's got 2 massive, double height, not just little under the counter fridges. I mean, like 2 full 6-foot fridges with drinks and soups and chocolate bars. That you go in, you want a can of Coke, you pay for it on an iZettle machine with your contactless phone. There's dishwasher. There's sofas, tables. all
right.
manner of things.
Blah 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 blah.
But
blah.
no, but the point is, it's gone from very small to very big over a 6 or 7 year time, and that's all been through people donating this. I'm getting rid of a sofa. It's easier to give it to you than it is to take it down the tip. I've got a spare. I know someone down my road who's got a fridge, and these things, they go on over time. Just like any upgrade.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people get fixated on at the start, is they want that big thing at the end, but you've got that kind of drawn out.
Well, I want to bring the live audience in. If anybody has any questions that we haven't asked that you would like to have answers to, please post them in here. And I mean, obviously, Richard is somewhat of aware of makerspaces because he belongs to one, and then Chris has a lot of experience in makerspaces. So if you have a question, please type it in, and we'll try to get to it before we move on. But I have a question for I guess for you, Chris. If people wanted to know if there was because I mean, I assume that people would be willing to get involved in makerspace, but they just don't know if there's one in their area. Is there an index of makerspaces, like even if it's just in the UK? I mean, because I have one that I have ready to go, and I'm gonna post in the chat that has an index of makerspaces around the world. But I don't know how complete it is. But is there? Give somebody a resource or a link or something that they can go to.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, you've got, it's probably it's not updated as often as it should be. As in, if someone makes a new space, they may not even know about this map that exists, and they may not have added their place on there. Or if they've gone and fizzled out, they won't be able to actually remove it from the map. But it's definitely, if it's the one I'm thinking of, on the wiki page, yeah.
The one I got was from NXPSD. It's just, I think it was just an info gathering site.
There is definitely a good one out there. I'll try and find a link to it and give it to you guys. That will show you all around the world where they are, and you can just look at that, see where your closest one is. Don't let that stop you if you think, oh, there's not one near me, because there might be. They just might not have known about this map or this resource, and there might be one just down the road that just started or trying to start, and they haven't quite got enough people yet. You could just be what pushes them over the edge to get going.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll post the link to the chat for the one that I have, but with that grain of salt that Chris just mentioned, go ahead and if you guys are interested, and you can click on that, and you might be able to find it. It's from nextpcb.com. It looks like a blog post more than anything else about where all these makerspaces are from around the world. You can give that a look, but absolutely what Chris said. Even if it doesn't list it there, I mean, look in your local directory, because it may actually be one that you're not aware of.
Yeah,
but also, if there's one that doesn't appear too close, contact them, because they might know of one.
Yeah,
in the middle distance. You could try my method. I had just had a conversation with Chris over, I think, WhatsApp one day, and said, I'm not aware of any in my area, but it's something I might be interested in. And within about 6 seconds, he'd sent me the link to the Cambridge one, with the details of the next meeting, and that was me then basically booked on to the next meeting. I think my makerspace journey is purely down to you, Chris, actually. Because you went, there is. There's one just in your backyard. There it is.
Andy's put something in the chat as well, which I was going to mention. The Hackerspace UK Hackerspace Foundation has a relatively up-to-date map of UK hackerspaces and makerspaces, and that's definitely worth checking out.
Well, I asked Andy if he'd send me that link, and I'll try to post that in the chat for anybody who's out there that is interested as well. Interesting conversation, gentlemen. I mean, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't see the downside to a makerspace, and I have obvious. And unlike Richard, and I don't want to say Jamie, because Jamie does some work on the podcast. Unlike Richard, I actually spent the day today thinking of trying to be the devil's advocate. Trying to think of I don't want to say negative things, but just things that would. And I couldn't come up with anything. I honestly, anybody who's interested in the kind of things that we do, and whether it's, I don't care if it's electronics, if you're pounding metal together to make pretty knives, or if you're doing woodworking, I just don't see the downside to joining a makerspace if there's one next to you. The only downside would be is if you couldn't afford the £20 per month or whatever it could be. I mean, and that's, I understand that. But honestly, in this community, it wouldn't be hard to find people that would fund you to do that either if you knew the right people.
There are a lot of spaces in this country I know that will do some kind of subsidy if you're unemployed or a student as well, because they want you to be members. Ultimately, they don't even want to charge you. They're not in it to make money typically.
Right.
Obviously, bills have to be paid.
Yeah, and I know the London space have a bit on their website that this is our cost, but contact us if you don't think it's worth that or you can't afford that.
I've got the link from Andy. I'm going to post that in the chat for you folks in the UK. Go ahead and check out the link that Andy just sent me. That might help you out a little bit.
There's a question out in the chat from Rob CP Woodton. He said, "Do you have to book time slots for the use of machines?"
Completely varies from space to space. I know for the laser cutter, for example, in Southampton Makerspace, yes, you need to say to someone, right, I'm coming in, I'm going to be using the laser cutter. There's only one, so
I'm not aware of anything at Cambridge. Certainly at the moment, it's fairly quiet, and they're trying to encourage people to be coming back in.
But after that, I would assume it's like get in line. It's just he's done, you can go. It's like form a queue behind the CNC machine. It's like whatever.
That's kind of the deal. I mean, you have to be at the machine. If you're running that machine, you have to be there supervising it. You can't just set it going and wander off and do something else. So if that's in machines in use, the operator is there with it. So you go up and say how long you're going to be. You're going to be here all day, and I'll come back. Or if not, go back in the middle of the night when there's less people around.
Mm-hmm. There's another question from Emma of the Dragon Tail Turnings. She wants to know, do companies sponsor makerspaces?
Yes, most definitely. We've had a lot of help from different companies down in Southampton. I see it all around the country.
Do they do it with product, or do they do that with actual cash?
Normally it's product. I'm sure it hasn't happened to us, but I'm sure there's cash involved as well. For example, with ours, all of our 3D printers are Lulzbot machines. That's a combination of having one of the members who is also sponsored by Lulzbot, but also the fact that they know full well if everyone's using one of these machines, they want a 3D printer. Their first thought is, this is the machine I'm going to get. And that's why I think tool manufacturers have donated a lot of equipment to these places.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way, because once you're familiar with that machine, it makes perfect sense to be getting that sort of machine. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, I think Franco had a question out here.
Oh, sorry, he's irrelevant.
No, Franco, I love Franco. Even though I love to hate him, I do love him.
Franco's awesome. Where's his question?
So he's asking at his Makespace, every so often they do demos and kind of tech demos and new techniques. Ever thought of bringing people in to demo crafts that maybe the general population doesn't do?
It's a great idea. I know.
Could bring Franco in for cooking.
Some places do that, but I don't see it enough. I don't think.
But I think there's an opportunity there. Then is what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Just casting my mind back over the years, we've had little things like a surface mount soldering workshop where a guy came in who knew all about it. He demoed it. We all had a go at it. It was fantastic. We all learned a little bit of something that day.
So I'm just trying to bring up.
I found that Andy found the link, the wiki link that you were talking about. So I just posted that in the chat too, for anybody who wants it. And if anybody's listening to this, the audio version of this later on, that'll be in the description as well. I'll make sure I save that link, because that's the one I was actually looking for. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Karam Hussain says, "What's the best approach to get companies to sponsor or support a makerspace?"
Definitely reach out to them.
Give me the money.
Pretty much.
Look, if you approach a tool company and they don't want to give you their tool because they know it's going to be used consistently, then, without naming names, then you know what to think of that tool. But if there's, if you're looking at a major like for the UK, I mean, what would be Record Power would be one. I mean, there's a number of tool companies that are suppliers to the UK that are proud and happy to see people let their machines at work. Then if there's an interest for them to advertise in that way, then I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. But they just have to know that they're going to be getting enough eyes on their product to make the investment worth it. It all comes down to publicity, because they're looking for publicity when they do something like that. And it's like, if there's enough eyes in that makerspace to see their tool, they'll give it to you without a problem. Yeah. But if you get 2 members, I wouldn't expect much, is all I'm saying.
It's also not always about going direct to the tool company and thinking of like brand name machines. There's thinking just of the machine lathe and the mill, the Cambridge Makerspace. They're both second-hand machines.
And they're old too, especially if you're talking about the Bridgeport you were talking about. Yeah.
Well, it's not a Bridgeport. It's a Wadco, but
okay.
It's not a new
machine.
But it is a good machine, and it's an old, and it probably came out of an industrial unit, a warehouse, or some manufacturing plant somewhere fairly local, and that came about because these things tend to snowball. So the more members you get, the better it becomes, and the more people they know, and then so my next door neighbour works for such and such, and they're kicking out a load of desks, or they're selling off all their machinery. And these, right, okay. So you end up with more fingers to get in more pies, and these things, they just kind of run away with themselves. So it's not all about necessarily going to a, brand X tool company and saying, "Give me a load of your tools because this is what we do." It's about just like you would at home. Get on Facebook Marketplace, get on eBay, get on Gumtree, get all of your members to do the same. And find out what's local to them, and then come back and say, well, we've got this and we've got that. What do we want? And go about it that sort of way as well. And I'm sure, Chris, you've done the same thing at your.
Yeah, we've had a few instances where widows have turned up and said, look, my husband's passed away. He's got loads of tools in his workshop. Do you want anything? And they've turned up the next day with vans of stuff. In fact, it's probably been more of a problem, the donations that we've received, as to what to do with them. Because you end up just swamped with stuff if you're not careful. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a hoarder. And I think a lot of the people who are visiting makerspaces and
collector.
Hoarders as well.
Collector.
Very difficult to say no.
Well, you know what? The surplus can always be given back to the members. He's like, hey, we're going to do a raffle this month, guys. We've got 400 10-millimeter sockets. We know that we need to keep 200 of them on hand because everybody loses the damn thing. But we've got 200 to give away. So here you go.
And those kind of things actually help as well, because if you get them donated to your space, then you can, like you say, you can raffle them out to your members. So yeah, I'll give the hack space 20 quid for that, whatever. I'll give it 25. Okay, yeah, all right. And that's 25 quid in the pot then to help towards the rent, help towards, member X's 2-month subsidy for their membership, or whatever it could be, or a new tool or whatever. So that, they sort of.
It's an interesting subject, guys. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but man, I mean, I would love to see a makerspace in my area. Actually, I would love to see some people that would be interested in a makerspace in my area. So I've got a long trek to go. But look into it. I mean, if there's one in your area, first of all, know that I envy you. And second of all, go enjoy it. Because, I mean, you know what? Like Chris mentioned earlier, not only are you going to have access to a lot of things that you probably don't have in your shop right now, but you're going to have access to the knowledge that goes with them. So that's always, I mean, for $20 a month, I'd pay that in a heartbeat. I mean, that's think about that compared to college tuition. I mean, hello,
it's worth traveling.
Yeah,
don't just think, I live in, I don't know, I've just seen it on Wolverhampton. I live in Wolverhampton. There isn't one in Wolverhampton, so therefore that's it. There might be one in the next town or the town over from that, or one within half an hour.
It's worth a half-hour drive. It's worth a half-hour drive.
Is it?
In that area, so, yeah.
The way.
Gentlemen. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's definitely worth the travel. So absolutely, go hunt one out and make the decision. But it could be worth it. Go and have a look, and make your decision from that. It's got to be worth it.
You can't
get back to us.
Just consider making one, because I guarantee you there's going to be people in your area who want the same thing.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I always have to be the negative Nancy here and just say that we got to end this thing. But Jamie, speaking of negative Nancy, it's time for you to do your thing, my friend.
Not quite yet. There was actually a question in the chat for Chris. It's with regards to something called the Maker Nuts collaboration. People wanted to know what it was all about.
Fair enough. I wanted to do a tiny little bit for testicular cancer awareness. It's something that often gets overlooked with all the other various different things out there. So 2nd of November, use that hashtag. Just make something, anything. It doesn't matter, and just get it out there. The message of that is not anything else. Okay. Maybe just post something about how to check yourself, or post a little fact or anything like that. I'm not looking for donations or anything like that. Let's just get some awareness out there. Make something at the same time. If you want to make a video, great. If you just want to make a little thing, great. It's all good. I put on Instagram.
It's kind of like the breast cancer awareness, but this one is for men.
Pretty much.
There you go. And hashtag it Maker Nuts. Is it Maker Nuts or Maker Nuts collaboration?
Just make us nuts.
It's just one of those things where I wish I had a welder. All right, Jamie. Now it's time for you to sing.
Speaking of Maker Nuts, Jamie's page.
Enough to make you go nuts.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know, right?
I've gotten good at removing my headphones.
Right.
Thank you.
So there's just one thing really to mention this time. It's a milestone hit by Mr. Zach Higgins. He's from MV Woodworks. He's just hit 50,000 subscribers.
Good for him.
So, well done, Mr. Zach Higgins.
Zach's good people too.
I was honestly expecting you to say 100,000 then. I was surprised.
Do you know what? He deserves 100,000.
He does,
definitely.
Zach is good people.
Yeah, big time.
We've never had him on. We need to have him on.
We do need to have Zach on. Good call. So on with my shout out. So my shout out came courtesy of Jake Thompson's brother. I saw this in his Facebook feed, and it's kind of like the most American thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So this guy.
I'm laughing because I already know. Go ahead.
This guy's got a YouTube channel dedicated to mouse traps, and this guy's basically built an 1882 rodent trap design, and he's titled it "The World's Luckiest Rat." And basically, what it is, it's basically a mouse trap or rat trap with a gun on it.
Hooked up to the trigger of a pistol, a 6-shooter. Yeah.
But what and he was kind of reading the patent on it, and they weren't too bothered about safety back in them days.
No,
they also set it up that you could also stop it from intruders from coming into your house. So yeah,
I actually watched that video, and the guy used a 22, but back in the day that was a 45. That 1882, that was a 45 caliber pistol.
Yeah, the guy's not short of subscribers. I mean, he's got 1.4 million. But if you want to go and check out the video, it's Sean Woods. So yeah, it's the video is told a crazy 1882 rodent trap design, the world's luckiest rat.
And he filmed, and he titled it that way because he actually put the trap together, and he cocked the hammer on his 22. But he didn't put even a blank in it, and he showed the rat that would have gone, and the trigger went off, and the rat would have been dead. Now, Jamie, thank you for being Jamie Page. That's all I can say. It's because you rock. Chris, you're our guest, so we're going to leave you to last because we always save the best for last, and as your guest, you automatically become better than we are. My shout out this week is to our compatriots in this forum. Is to the Making Geeks podcast. If you aren't familiar with the Making Geek podcast, it's Wes Swain and a lot of his friends. Tonight is their 200th episode, and they're going to have Going to have all sorts of people on with them. I would encourage you to go check these guys out. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time here in the U.S., and I'm guessing that's like 1 a.m. in the UK, but you don't have to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning if you don't want to. Just go to their website, which is makinggeeks.com, and you can go check it out. The links to all of our shout-outs today are in the description, so congratulations to them on 200. Even though, Wes, you didn't invite us on, we don't feel... Well, yes, we do. Anyway, no, I'm just saying, congratulations, gentlemen. Well done. 200th episode for them tonight, so give them some love.
Nice. Well done.
Well, Richard doesn't have a shout-out. Chris, why don't you go ahead and do yours? Because I know Richard doesn't, because even if he does, I'm not putting it in the description because he never got back to me. So, Chris, go ahead and do yours.
Fair enough. In that case, I'll be greedy if I may and have two.
Oh, please. Rock on. You'll make up for Richard's,
There you go.
paltry showing.
I'm basically torn between these two. They're very, very different channels, has to be said. First one, Billy Rubin. She is absolutely amazing. She's already got a massive social media presence elsewhere, but she's recently just started a YouTube channel. I think, this time next year she'll probably be on 100,000 subs. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, she's going to do good things. Definitely on the 3D printing side, she is absolutely amazing.
I haven't yet, and it wasn't until you told me who that channel was. I had never checked her out, so I'm gonna make sure I spend some time. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And second one is Kids Invent Stuff. Hopefully, a lot of you have. I don't think you've had them on the show, but they're really awesome to chat to.
They are awesome.
Ruth and Sean, they're doing great things. They're just getting an idea from kids, whether that be a candy pooping unicorn or whatever. The kids are coming up, of course, like we were saying earlier, kids that aren't constrained by these things that we have as adults. So they will come up with the crazy ideas, and these two, being engineers, will make them happen and make them reality. And
they made a popcorn doorknob.
That's right.
That was amazing. It's just friggin' fantastic. What a great channel.
I feel like I need to go.
It's a fantastic channel.
So say that again, just for my poor
Kids invent stuff.
Invent stuff.
It's an awesome channel. And Chris, you're a star. You're a star for shouting them out.
Yeah, they were at last year's Maker Central as well. So some of you may have seen them.
I've just got them up on my phone. I don't want to distract from this because I know Chris will have an aneurysm or something. But
no, it's all right. No, go ahead.
I vaguely recognise the guy, the picture of the guy.
Nobody cares who you recognize, Richard. Let's move on. Well, I'm just being honest. I mean, if you were listening to a podcast, would you want to hear some guy going, I'm kind of vaguely... No.
While we're waiting for Richard, I've got a premiere coming out at 10 o'clock.
No.
I should probably be here until
in
then,
about 25 minutes.
Jamie did his shout out, didn't he, on Jamie's page?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Oh, I've done mine, yeah. Mine's about that bloke that kills mice.
That's it.
Because America.
Well, I was actually just looking through my.
No! Here we go. Richard's not going to let it go. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'll just say it doesn't need anything in the description. It's just if you're on YouTube, go and check out the Fred Dibner story. Anyone from the UK knows who Fred Dibner is. If you want to see a guy climb a enormously tall chimney, like 300-400 foot high chimney, on a single ladder that he's banged in with little metal stakes into the brickwork to get up to the very top and sit there knocking it down from the top down, brick by brick, in his 40s and 50s, how they used to do it in the 1800s. Go and check out the Fred Dibner story, because just the way they put the scaffolding around the top there is amazing engineering. Proper old school. Worth a go. So that's my shout, the Fred Dibner story. Do you want the link for that later, Chris?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Go and say it again, though, because I mean, it makes you happy, because you were smiling when you said the Fred Dibner story. So
I just think it's a cool name, Dibner.
Well, apparently.
It's kind of wicked.
Wow.
Chris. No. Yeah, exactly.
Would you wrap it up, for crying out loud? Chris, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are actually the expert that we needed here, because we weren't going to get it from anybody sitting in this room currently. So it was nice. It was nice to have somebody like you on with us today. I appreciate you coming, man.
It's kind of fresh to have someone on that knows what they're talking about, to be honest, isn't it?
He's gonna leave and go. I have no clue what just happened. Anyway, end it, Richard. Please, you're the host.
So I will. Are we having a free winner on Patreon? But we kind of do a little after party for everyone that's listening live, but not for those that listen afterwards because it gets edited out. But if we have time or not tonight.
We need to slow that down so I understand that. So I'm going to guess, okay, whatever. Sure.
So we might do, but we might not. If you're listening in the future, you'll never know. But if you're here live, then you'll find out in just a second. Until then, if you are still listening, thank you. If you're not, we say what we like about you, usually in the show afterwards if we have one. Until next week, or whenever it is, whatever we're talking about, y'all take care. Cheerio.
Have a great week, everybody.
See you later, everybody.
Farewell.